Welcome to the vlog. Today we're going to discuss awnings. This is quality caravan vlogging. So what kind of awnings are there? There's several types of awnings. We've owned a few in our time as caravanners. So there's the traditional poled awning, so they might have, I don't know, steel or fiberglass poles. There's also the kind of awnings that have poles like tents, you know, the black bendy ones that kind of fold in on each other. There's those. There's also air awnings, where instead of having steel or carbon fiber or fiberglass poles, you have air beams. They all have their advantages and disadvantages, as well as the type of structure like the poles or air beams. There's also different types of awning, like sizes. So you have full awnings, which are the awnings that go, well, as they suggest, they go the whole length of the caravan. There's also porch awnings, which typically are maybe 2.5, something like 2.5 meters wide, that you probably maybe use for a weekend away. There's also canopies. We have a canopy on this caravan sometimes, which are again good for weekends away. So why do you need an awning? Good question. You don't really need an awning, I guess. You certainly don't have to have one. What we've found is good. It obviously gives you extra space, especially when you've got a full awning on the side. There's the whole length of the caravan. Kids can go in there during the day. Good to keep dogs in, like when you come out for a walk, wash the dogs off in the awning. Let's go through the different types of awnings, starting with a full awning. Now, full awning is the one that you probably, if you're on Facebook and stuff, you might hear people saying, like, what size of awning do I need? Now, for me, this has always been somewhat of a confusion, because we've had a full awning, but we don't have full awnings generally, so you don't necessarily need to measure them. So with a full awning, which is the one that goes basically in the front awning rail, all the way right down to the back of the awning rail, that's a full awning. Now, traditionally, you'll see these as being poled awnings. Now, the advantage of these have is that they're obviously bigger than other awnings. The downside is they are trickier to put up. Now, I know there are people saying, "Oh, I prefer the pole ones." You know what? Yeah, they're solid and they look, in my opinion, they look much better when they're up. But having owned one, they are a nightmare to put up, and you are in constant risk of injuring yourself and damaging the caravan. Seriously. I mean, if you got anywhere, it doesn't even need to be particularly windy. It's during that point where you're putting the pole up, if it gets a bit windy, and I've done it myself, the pole slipped, cracked me on the head, gone back and made a hole in the caravan. Luckily it didn't pierce the skin, so I mean, this is our first caravan, the Naus. So that's the full awning. I do prefer them, but they are a bit of a nightmare to put up. And I think maybe as we go through this discussion on awnings, you'll realise that, well, you'll make your own mind up, obviously, I'm not telling you what awning to buy, but you'll realise that certain awnings are better depending on how long you stay on the site. So the air awning would, now off the top of my head, I can't remember any full awnings that I've seen that as an air awning. Now that's I'll just stop there on the sort of definition of full awning and a porch awning. Now, Isabella have very different views on what's a full awning and what's a porch awning. We have an Isabella air awning, which Isabella would call a porch awning, even though it's 4 meters. So it's not the whole length of the caravan, but it is 4 meters. So I'd call that a full awning, but Isabella call it a porch awning. So when I was at the show asking Isabella, can they show me their porch awnings, they're basically directing me to the awning we already have, which honestly is the definition I have of a porch awning is that you'd probably use it for a weekend, and we probably wouldn't use the 4 meter awning for the weekend. I'll discard what Isabella think is a porch awning, so my awning is a full awning. So a porch awning to me is one that's maybe, I think, roughly 2.4 to 2.6 meters wide. Now, you might have seen on social media recently, we've just purchased a porch awning which is 2.4 meters wide, an air awning. Now, definition for me again for porch awning is it's quick to put up, quick to take down, and something you can just use for the weekend. Now, whether that's poled air or whatever, it's a personal thing. I like air awnings. They are heavier, and personally I think easier to put up. So that's full awning, porch awning. So then there's a canopy. Now, canopy this is what you'll find. The longer you have a caravan, the more of you're gonna maybe start off with a 4 meter awning, and you think this is great. Then you'll realise I don't really want to take this is our story anyway. We didn't really want to take the 4 metre awning every time, not even just for a weekend in height of the summer. So you don't need the full awning, as it takes quite a while to put up and take down again. So we thought canopy would be a great idea. So canopy is however long. Say we've got a 4 metre one. So you thread it through the awning rail, and it stays on the caravan in like a big bag. Maybe you've seen caravans. I'll try and put a picture of mine somewhere. Maybe you've seen caravans drive along with them on the side. Now, some people worry about it being on the side. We've never had an issue. It kind of rests on the awning light, or some of them do. Ours does anyway. It's never caused a problem. So no worry there. But when you get to site, you unzip the bag, roll out the awning, the canopy. The legs are, again, I'll put some. The legs are come out of the side and down, and you have two legs. Sometimes you have one centre pole if it's a bit windy, and you peg it down, peg the legs down. You can also get storm straps and the like. So again, it's really just to keep the sun off you, and maybe if it drizzles, it might keep you dry. You can get canopies with sides and fronts, so that it looks like an awning. Certain canopies let you do that anyway. So that's an idea that might appeal to you. For us, I thought the sides and the front make the canopy quite expensive. One of the things we have found with canopies is that they're tricky in the wind. Now, especially if you say you get to site, you put the canopy up, peg it down, even storm straps, and go off for a bit of shopping, and the weather changes, which can happen. I mean, I've been on sites where these canopies have kind of been bent and have ended up on the roof of the caravan. Not a situation you want. So when we were last time we was in the south of France, we took. See, this is the thing, we can never decide what awning to take. Right, if we go 3 weeks in France, if you take an awning, like an air awning, which is the 4 metre one we've had. Now what you can do is unzip the sides and the front panels, and it does kind of become like a canopy. But then the next time you use it, you've got to zip all the panels in again, which takes extra time. Putting it on the awning rail and taking it off the awning rail is pretty tricky, because you need to unzip the bag as if you're putting it up on site. Unzip the bag, roll it out a reasonable amount so that the canopy can slide through the awning rails, because there's metal feet in there which are the whole length of the awning. So the awning, it's not flexible, so you have to get that. Anyway, maybe I'll put a clip of me putting it on or taking it off here so that you can have a look. Just something to consider. I'm not saying don't buy one. They do have their use cases, and we do use it reasonable amount. With all these things, you can get accessories. I'll get onto accessories in a minute. But with the canopy, what we do have is it's called a sun block or a sunshade at the front of the awning of the canopy. It goes so you got like windbreaks at the side and then something at the front. But then maybe we just take the awning, but then that's heavy. So with a full awning, there is a need to measure the awning. Now the reason you measure it is because it does go from, as I said, it does go the whole length of the awning rail. So when you're measuring it, measure it from the floor up through just measure the awning rail basically, but from the floor to the bottom of the awning rail, the whole length of the awning rail to the back and down to the floor again. Okay, I'll put a picture somewhere of measuring guides. And that's an important thing to do. And then I think certain companies have certain sizes, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You need to select whichever number's better for your caravan. Whilst on the subject of measuring, if you're looking at getting a reasonably sized, not a porch awning, say for instance us a 4 metre awning. Now we bought the 4 metre awning with our last caravan, and the last caravan didn't have a window on the side. And when we put this awning up, it goes like just this side of the door all the way to the back, but when it comes down over the window, which isn't ideal. I think if you're just got a caravan and you haven't got an awning yet, measure that distance between the door and the back window and make sure that the down pole isn't going to obscure the window, because one, you don't get such a snug fit to the caravan because of the window, unless I've seen on these new Baileys the windows are flush, but even then you can't then open the window, which might not bother you, but just to don't get caught out with that. Just be careful when you're buying an awning that's say 3 or 4 meters. Make sure you measure where your window is, if indeed you have one that side. So there's obviously different types of awnings, like I say, porch, full canopy. Obviously, many different manufacturers with different prices. So if you get an awning that seems good value, check why it's not as expensive as some of the other makes. Now, things to look out for: the cheap ones are fine as long as you know what you're buying. One of the things to check is the thickness of the material. So they have, I think the problem you get is manufacturers like to use their terms rather than tell you, looking here, it's basically the weight of the fabric is a denier, right? As in that comes from the clothing industry, I think, from what I've read. So for instance, you get a camper which is 150D, so that's 150 denier, and that gives you a gauge of how thick the material is. Now, of course, what they do, they go into terminology, like if you're familiar with Apple equipment, like if you get an Apple laptop, they call them retina displays. But so then you can't easily, or what is that, 4K, 5K? How do I compare that to other makes? Well, it's very difficult, or at least it takes a bit of digging. So it's no different in the awning world. Like Camper Dometic, they have Weather Shield All Season. Anyway, so yeah, they have names for their fabrics rather than give you an actual description, but an actual value that you can compare other makes with. Something with the material that you need to be careful of is that Camper All Season stuff. That was basically going to be named well. It can be used all season. Whereas some of the other cheaper awnings, the material is much thinner, almost like a tent material. Like when I was looking at porch awnings at the NEC, there was one that was half the price. The one I ended up buying, there was one half the price, and you could see by looking at it that the material was thin, which of course made it light, but then potentially not as weather resistant. It is what horses for courses. It depends what you're happy with. Also, another thing with looking at the different pricings of awnings, be careful, or that you're aware of kind of what doors open. Say the front doors might all open. The doors might roll up. The doors to the side might not have fly screens like the mesh, so that you can basically roll the door away to one side and leave it with a mesh exposed. The cheaper ones that don't have that mesh, so you're opening, again, as long as you know these things, and also the front windows might not unzip, and some of them unzip and you can turn them into like a canopy. Pays your money, takes your chance. I don't know whatever the saying is. I don't know what the saying is. I'm going to edit that out. So I suppose buying an awning, there are obviously loads and loads of accessories, like Caravan, and that's what Caravan's about, right? You buy the Caravan, you think, fantastic, done. First time you use it, you realise there's maybe half a dozen things you haven't got that you need, right? That's just the way it goes. So awning accessories that you might be interested in getting, there's a draft skirt, which is basically when you put the awning up, you've still got the gap between the Caravan and the ground, where the wind can come through, and it does come through. I mean, if you're trying to windproof it, then there's this draft skirt, which if you look on the Caravan, there's a bottom awning rail. That's where the draft skirt goes in, and there's things you can buy to kind of block off the wheel. With Bailey's, their awning rail goes around the wheel, so you can just buy something that goes in there. With Swift, they don't have that, so I've bought like a board thing that just goes in there and stops the draft. So draft skirt, that's one. You're probably going to want to look at storm straps, additional straps to the guy ropes that you get with an awning, thicker webbing with great big steel or whatever, steel kind of pegs, and springs on the end so that they can flex steady. They can flex in the wind. You can also get annexes. We have an annex with our Isabella, and purely because we bought it used and it came with it. We've put it up once to try it, but we don't need anything that big. So, but if you've got a larger family, then you have the awning, and then you can extend it. You can basically put an extension on the side. You get them left and right, or both. That makes maybe takes the awning from 4 meters to 6 meters, whatever. I would think if you need an awning that big, you're probably better off getting a full awning. You get bedroom tents. They're like little kind of tents that go inside the awning. They usually have hooks around, so you can, and it turns it into a sleeping compartment at night. If you I don't know, if your children have been naughty or something, go out, get out in the awning, sleep out there. You can get all sorts of lights for awnings. Camper do one, they're called Saber Link. We found them very bright, although they've got a dimmer. They may have changed now, but they were very bright. You can buy curtains for awnings. Nice to have curtains. We like curtains because it's nice to shut them at night and just make it a bit more cozier. in the summer. Side poles, the poles that go between the caravan and the edge of the awning. Where the awning meets the caravan, you can kind of put it in and then put a pole down beside that so that it holds it close to the caravan. And we've recently bought those for our porch awning. Something I want to talk about is awning maintenance. Now, if you've now got an awning and you want to know how best to look after it, well, there's a few things to remember. Firstly, what we generally do is when we're on holiday and it's getting near to the time we're leaving, what we'll do, we'll check the day before what the weather's like, and if we need to, we will take the awning down a day early if it means avoiding rain, because it's not ideal with a wet awning. Getting it dry is pretty difficult because they are quite large, or well, obviously it depends what size you've got, right? But our 4-metre awning is certainly difficult to dry if it's wet. Now, a couple of times we've done that. We've basically just folded it up, stuck it in the boot, drove home, opened it up, and just left it on the floor to dry. Now, we're fortunate that we have underfloor heating. Now, I don't suggest you install underfloor heating just so that you can dry your awning, but the awning goes down on the floor. Same with the toe cover, down on the floor, tiled floor. After about an hour or so, it's dry. I've seen some people hang it over a trampoline. If you've got a trampoline in the garden, whop it over there in the summer. Something you should do regularly as well is clean the windows. I just use water and dry it off before we pack it away. Make sure you keep the awning ventilated if it's not a canopy, obviously, because loads of air coming. But you'll notice in the top corners, there's some of them have little ventilation kind of gaps that are like mesh. They'll have a flap over. You can open that flap, and now depending on what time of year it is, we've gone away in September when it seemed to be really damp, and overnight we've had to leave the side doors open so that there's enough ventilation to stop condensation forming in the awning. Now, the problem with that is the inside of the awning gets wet, and if you're putting it away when it's wet, like I say, going back to the previous point, it's not particularly good. If we have to, we'll leave the doors open. Depends if you're on grass or hard standing up how much condensation you'll get. And then awning rail care. It's really worth investing in a little can of silicone spray to spray in the awning rail. Now, depending on the age of your caravan, you can get little brushes. I'll put links here, and there'll probably be links in the description on this with this kind of thing, Amazon affiliate links. And there's a little brush that you can kind of run through the awning to get rid of any debris that's in there and spray. I mean, when we got this, well, that's a new caravan. First thing I did was sprayed the awning rail with silicone spray. Awning went in beautifully. What you will find sometimes with new caravans is that they have little bits of mastic kind of blocking the way, so just kind of get them out with the brush. That's pretty much your lot on awnings. I've been talking for 27 minutes now. Be interested to see how far I get this chopped down to. Probably about 4 minutes of useful information. Porch, full awning, canopy, poles, air. That's all you need to know. Thanks for watching. Thumbs up if you like this. Subscribe if you want to see some more content from me. See you in the next one. This is quality caravan vlogging.